Bittersweet Candy Ball. I really like Bittersweet Candy Ball. I really don't like Bittersweet Candy Ball. Hey, you should read Bittersweet Candy Ball. How dare you talk shit about Bittersweet Candy Ball? Well, I don't like Bittersweet Candy Ball. I really like Bittersweet Candy Ball. I think it's one of the best comics ever. I really don't like Bittersweet Candy Ball. It's technically not a furry comic, Bittersweet Candy Ball. Hey, if you don't like house pets, you should go check out Bittersweet Candy Ball. Hey, have you heard about Bittersweet Candy Ball? I have actually heard about Bittersweet Candy Ball. Bittersweet Candy Ball is the best drama comic on the entire fucking internet, and I will gladly read it over and over again as a bedtime story. Well, I don't like Bittersweet Candy Ball because I don't. Okay, fine, I get it. We're doing it now. Shut the fuck up.
I've been dying to take this and cut it to pieces. I can't fight this feeling any longer. It constantly haunts me. I can't sleep at night. I don't ever wanna close my eyes. I've been dying to take this and cut it to pieces. I can't fight this feeling any longer. It constantly haunts me. I'll never sleep at night. I'll never wanna close my eyes. I'll take
So let me just take you through my first exposure to Bittersweet Candy Ball. I read some of the first pages of the comic and they're there, I guess. And then I started wondering, what the heck is the big craze about anyway? Because what I'm seeing really isn't grabbing me. So I go online and type in Bittersweet Candy Ball into Google, and sure enough there's sites upon sites about this is the best comic in the world, or my top 10 favorite webcomics, and even a bunch of erotic fanfiction.
Lucy's eyes lit up in worry. Shit! She squirmed, her toes curling as his thick cock pressed impossibly deep into her pussy as he took full advantage of the position they were in. You like it deep like that? Fuck! Do it! I wanted you to fuck me for years! Do it! What the fuck?
But to not let my own thoughts be obscured by other reviews, I steer clear of those, and instead I then try and just see if I can find something about the comic and its creator.
And that's when I knew that I had fucked up.
Now, it's hard to find any proof of any of this, so I'll just say what I read online, which is that the creator of the comic, Veronica Teixeira, and her husband, Oliver Suitcase Barham, are rather infamously known for not taking criticism very well. In fact, upon reading up on it, even the community doesn't like anything negatively said about this comic. But to be fair, this isn't exactly anything new, seeing I've seen people online literally talking about killing me because I talked shit about Les Lindas. They feel really strongly about this comic. So much so that Oliver is notoriously known for shitting on everyone and everything who complains about the comic even a little.
So, Oliver, I'll probably be saying some not so positive things about this comic before this review is over. So, let me do your work for you, like a friendly gesture. Okay, so I'm bald, I'm scrawny, I'm pale, my accent sucks, and my voice sounds like a cat being run over. Furthermore, let's take the obvious ones. I never support webcomics, I don't know what I'm talking about, and no one cares what I think. Damn! You're welcome!
I saw a complaint that Veronica was an attention-seeking whore, and the main reason for that accusation was because she advertised a lot on other people's forums and comics. I will say that that's a rather misinformed complaint, as she doesn't necessarily decide which sites gets her advertisement. And it's vital to a comic artist to advertise for their comic so they can get viewers. So I kinda just wanna defend Veronica on that one. What I cannot condone, however, is shitting on other webcomics to boost your own popularity, which is a thing that Veronica and Oliver does a lot. Ryan Sommer, The Oatmeal, and Dueling Analogs are some of the creators and comics that has been on the receiving end of this.
This is like me saying, God, that nostalgia critic guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He's such a cunt. You should watch me instead!
Now, I'm not saying that you're not allowed to have an opinion, but going out there as a webcomic creator and then shitting on other webcomics as the very first thing without even being prompted to is just juvenile and poor taste, if you ask me.
Leave that shit to the professional dickheads.
So, is any of this true or not? Well, them shitting on comics is, sure, but the thing about Oliver and Veronica being greedy and demanding attention, I don't know. It's just what I read online, and people are quick to lie about dumb shit online. Working in retail in a video game store, you'd be amazed how many times I've had people come down to buy GTA 7 cause some dude online said it was out. What I can prove without a shadow of doubt, however, is a thing that when discovering it actually made me visibly upset. There's this video online where someone is showcasing some of what they think are the dumbest and worst comments and critiques on Bittersweet Candy Ball, and Oliver has helped pick out some of them, and you know, for all intents and purposes, some of these are really dumb and bad. But you know why I can say that and you as a creator can't? 'Cause they're not my fucking fans. Jesus Christ, dude, these people made you, and you're making fun of them? Really? I'm sorry, maybe I'm just blowing this widely out of proportion. I mean, looking at the like bar down there, no one hardly seems to have an issue with it. It just rubs me the wrong way. It may be in harmless fun and all, but it just sits so wrong with me.
I can't believe how utterly freaking stupid you are.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm 99% sure that both Veronica and Oliver are, like, the coolest people on planet Earth, and some specific loud people have just kinda yelled loud enough for it to be the first information that pops up online if you go digging. What I can say, however, is that the comic will present us with 3 very interesting things. One is a complete decline, one's an improvement, and one's a standstill. What do I mean? Let's dive in and find out, shall we?
How could this happen to me? I made my mistakes. Got no.
So, right off the bat, let me just be a gigantic asshole and open a dictionary, because I kind of feel some people need to know something. So the first word is drama, and if we look in the dictionary, it says an exciting, emotional, or unexpected event or circumstance. Okay, now let's look up melodrama. A dramatic form that does not observe the laws of cause and effect, and that exaggerates emotion and emphasizes plot or action at the expense of characterization. In short, a drama is realistic, whereas a melodrama is exaggerated and over the top. This is drama.
Giant?
You stay. I go.
This is not.
Play of the game.
Oh, hi, Mark.
To put it into layman terms, melodrama is the act of turning any and all emotions up to 11. It's the difference of being sad over your favorite show being cancelled to wanting to jump off of a building because of it. Bittersweet Candy Ball is 10% drama, 90% melodrama. Much like how in Jack, there's no one who's ever just a little grumpy. Everyone here is either super depressed or ultra pissed. Either that or they're just, happy. It gets to the weird point where it's downright ridiculous, and you'll find one character make a gigantic spiel out of having realized a very normal thing. Like, those quotes that they put at the end of every episode of Scrubs? The ones that South Park, for good reason, always makes fun of? Well, imagine that about the most normal mundane thing in the world.
Hello. Hey man, I just called to let you know that I really appreciate that you suggested a new laundry detergent for me.
Oh. No problem.
No, seriously, it really feels like it was the right thing to do. It's like a burden has been lifted from my shoulders. To never walk in a kind of sort of stiff shirt ever again. My future is ahead of me, and I can do with it what I want. I will tread this new path with an uncrusted shirt and somewhat clean underwear, and I won't walk it alone. I shall walk this path with many other people who have faced this tragedy and seen the light of good detergent. Cause that's how we are as people. We are the ones who adapt and say no to bad laundry detergent. This is our destiny.
Another thing you'll quickly find out when reading Bittersweet Cannibal is that it suffers from what TV tropes have chosen to call cerebrous syndrome, which is a tone shift towards dramedy. It should go without saying what this means, but in the interest of everyone being on the same page, it means that it goes from being all about silly jokes to actually start to have drama and seriousness in it, and that actually starting to become the major focus point of the comic. A thing I can say, however, is that this was a good fucking call to make this change, cause frankly, those jokes were so horribly unfunny and forced that it made Carlos Mencia sound hilarious.
And by that I don't mean they stole their jokes, they just weren't very funny. I don't know that many unfunny American comedians, I'm sorry.
Or rather, I'm saying a good call, when in fact it just feels like the comic picked the best of two wrongs. The drama is so unnatural. Half the time it feels like the only explanation why Lucy and Mike are supposed to be a thing is, and I'm quoting directly from the first page of chapter 26 here for those of you who want to follow along, the reason why these two should hook up is because they are heterosexual childhood best friends who are opposite genders and talk to each other about anything. What if they want to stay as friends? What if they value their friendship so much that trying to form a relationship would be dangerous for the relationship to stay alive? It's not exactly easy to go back to a best friend relationship after breaking up. Trust me, I've been there. Really, entire chapters of this comic is centered around the inability to understand why Mike and Lucy aren't bumping uglies, simply because they're both straight and have known each other for a long time. And they're not the only ones. In the Bittersweet Cannibal universe, people are simply not able to function without a significant other, the pursuit for it, or if they're blubbering retards. A character finds out that he doesn't have a chance with this one girl, time to immediately hook up with someone else. Can't have that girl, time to immediately pursue someone else. Are you friends? You best start fucking right fucking now or society will cast you out.
This is the kind of logic that you find in fedora-wearing neckbeards who complain about the friend zone, for fuck's sake!
The story is centered around the protagonist and kinda sorta maybe self-insert Lucy, Mike, and their friends, and their romantic antics as they go through high school. And I'd be lying if I said that while it's not handled super well, and the premise isn't super deep, it's still a good idea. People who typically read webcomics are people still in school, and so if you can manage to make a reader identify with one of the many romantic scenarios you got going, it's an almost certain hook. The problem is though that it's like fishing with a hand grenade. Sure it works, but it's not exactly handled that well. This is mostly due to the rather clumsy and exaggerated melodrama.
Really? This is like the second Jack comic. The initial story is interesting and something I'd actually like to read, but the execution is horrible to the point where I simply can't. And I'm serious here. I really wanted to love this comic. So bad. Most of all, so you people wouldn't yell at me.
Now the main source of melodrama is that Mike is stuck between Lucy and the character called Sandy. Now, while most people would high-five Mike for this, I'd instead take that hand and bonk it against my very own forehead. Why is there even an issue picking? Just fucking pick Sandy. Okay, let me level the playing field here for you so you guys know what I'm talking about. Mike is in a long distance relationship with this chick known as Sandy, who for some odd reason can't say Michael and instead just says Michael. And before you ask, no, she doesn't have a lisp or anything, so I guess this is just cause they want the character to be Moe. Anyway, so Mike and her are a thing, right? And in comes Lucy, and because they've been friends, suddenly it's okay for Mike to start fancying her. Why? And I don't mean why is that okay, cause that's shitty enough in itself, but why the actual fuck is he fancying Lucy? And I know some people will immediately come to her defense, but let me just say that it's again because of the comic's shitty execution that I have an issue with her. In her most boiled down state, Lucy is supposed to be a tsundere character, and for those of you who are not giant weeps like me, a tsundere is the kind of character who's cold and pushes people away, yet has the heart of gold, right? You know, the shittiest of all the deres, but nevertheless. And it's not like I can't look further than my own nose and see that this might be something for some people. The problem is that it's only some of the aspects of a tsundere that the creators got right, which is the one where they are cold and secluded. The punching thing that is usually accompanied with the tsundere trope in mangas and anime, which we all know this comic is taking giant inspiration from, the punching and kicking are almost always reserved for when the tsundere character is having her, walls broken down, either be it through sexual stuff or emotional stuff, and the punching people usually comes as a result of the person in question either punishing the other person for their sexual exploits, or to push them away because they don't like having their walls torn down. The problem is though that that's not what Lucy does. Lucy is like a pro boxer who just won't be let into the ring and just takes it out on everyone else. She just punches, kicks, chokes and God knows what else everyone at any sign of annoyance. And trust me, there's a big difference in not wanting to let people in and just being a very violent asshole.
If there's one thing I've learned from the Warcraft movie and complaining about it, it's that there's people who don't necessarily care about the execution as long as the idea is there. And really, I can't fault people for that. It's the same with this comic. The idea is there, but because it's executed poorly, it falls to the ground for me.
Guys, okay, I know that some of my subscribers actually like this comic, and I'm sorry, but this comic is just not that good. Every time I loaded up a new page, I couldn't physically stop myself from looking at the upload date slowly closing in to recent time, cause I wanted to just finish it. I wasn't invested. There's so much dumb shit clogging up every page that the moment I was about to be invested, I was yanked right back out of it. Like, oh look at Michael desperately trying to find Sandy and... Wait, what the fuck? Did Lucy just steal an egg from the street? And it's suddenly hers now? What? What about the original parents? Also, why can't she talk with that animal? The fuck kind of animal is it even? And why is it not being severely punished for screaming out whore at everyone in public? Again, it's a clear sign of having an idea, yet conveying it and executing it are two different methods entirely.
This is the very reason why when people ask me, hey, wouldn't it be cool if there was a comic where a space monkey Nazi is swimming around in the Atlantic Ocean, fist fighting Cthulhu for the ancient casket of Dio and Abraham Lincoln, so they can unite and become a superhero force that specifically tackles identity theft? I can't say yes or no, cause while the plot is different, it all comes down to the execution.
Speaking of badly executed jokes, like I said before, it's probably one of the best things for this comic to move away from the jokes cause frankly they didn't do the comic any good. My favorite failed joke is centered around Lucy's hearing cause her left ear is deaf. Okay? Her left ear is shitty. Can't hear shit through her left ear. Except the billion times where she's hearing shit through her left ear just fucking fine. The jokes will several times use the fact that she can't hear out of her left ear as a joke, usually on Michael's expense. But because we so many times see Lucy hearing just fine, I sincerely had to think for a minute before I realized that, alright, she's not supposed to be able to hear.
Say it with me now. The idea is good, the execution is shit. Very good, let's do it again. The idea is good, the execution is shit.
Also, when I was in 8th grade, sure a lot of my time was focused on thinking about the other sex. I think that's the case for most people. But not freaking all of it. These characters do little else but worrying about the other sex, and every melodrama point is centered around them deepening their understanding or affection for one another. Did Did they never, I don't know, play Nintendo or have trouble with homework or some shit? Can we not get some of that? You know, flesh out the characters more than just vehicles to take us from one melodrama point to the next? I mean, we kind of sort of maybe get that, but it turns into giant drama at the end anyway. As it stands now, their sole existence comes down to focusing all their time and energy on finding a partner, and if they already got one, then to pleasing that partner. The only exception to this rule is when super overblown mental trauma has to be overcome. And I mean to the point of people breaking down to a sobbing infant at the mere mention of that particular phobia. It's so overblown it's ridiculous. Like, Lucy has abandonment issues, so the moment she thinks Mike is dead, she immediately attaches herself to someone new who she has hardly known for more than a week, and I'm talking on the very same fucking page.
Like, I'm afraid of heights, but that doesn't mean I pass out or get the shivers the moment I get up on a freaking footstool.
The thing that made me the most puzzled, and despite having read all of the comic up to its current point right now, I still don't get it, and it's Lucy does actually punch people. Like, you know how in anime when people are punched into the sky or smacked on top of the head, it's just goofy slapstick humor, right? Yeah, even the comic treats it as such throughout most of the comic. But then this becomes key points to Lucy being a horrible person, and eventually loses all her respect from her friends and partners. And the worst part is that when she does punch people at that moment in time, it is treated as just silly slapstick humor. But then several chapters later, it's suddenly treated as real actual abuse. And not only that, some of the jokes that the character Paulo does on some people's expense gets pulled up to be used as serious melodrama. That's so ass backwards, I'm actually kinda impressed. Like I had to address to a particular schmuck once, violence is typically exaggerated for the sake of comedy, and you can't make me think that that wasn't what Veronica and Oliver was initially going with. But then, near the latest strips, you're seriously going to tell me that Lucy's reaction to be called Babe is an actual, no hyperbole, punch in the mouth? If that's the case, how the fuck is she able to still have friends?
Actually, didn't I say something to that effect in an earlier review? You know, to not take slapstick humor as something that actually happens in the story's plot?
So what is it about the comic's writing that got people so head over heels? What is it that is making people go absolutely bananas over this comic? What is it that's going to make several super angry fans of the comic spam my comment section with me being a hater or not know what I'm talking about? I think I got an answer, and I'd just like to, before I say anything, apologize for any and all insults people might take away from this, and assure you I don't mean any of it in an insulting manner. As a matter of fact, I live with the idea that if you like something that I don't like, hey, you're the winner. You're enjoying something I'm not, so surely I'm the one missing out. So yeah, if you feel attacked or anything by what I'm gonna say next, I'm sorry and it wasn't my intention. Okay? Good. Now the reason why I think this comic's writing is such a big hit is because it's for people who don't necessarily think. It's for young people, it's for the people who are, like the characters in the comic, in the 8th grade or somewhere around there. If you take your brain out of your skull, this comic has a lot of drama. It never stands still, and the characters are widely different. However, when you put your brain back in your skull and start thinking, suddenly you realize that the melodrama is over the top and greatly exaggerated, that sometimes it moves way too fast to develop the situation or set up a scene, and you realize that while the characters are different, they are paper thin. I said it before, but I think this is simply a case of people being able to see the thing for its core components and enjoying it because of that, while some people, like me, can only really enjoy it if the execution is on point too.
So, do I fault you for liking this comic? Absolutely not. I can easily see why people would find this comic entertaining. I would, however, rather get soccer kicked in the nuts than read through the first half of this comic again.
Now, with that said, the comic actually does improve near chapter 53 and starts to handle its characters and plots with a little more finesse. It's still overblown, over the top melodrama, but it's handled better nonetheless. In fact, one chapter honestly had me smiling and following it with great interest, which was a chapter of 2 characters dealing with a pregnancy scare. Here's the problem though. That's the first time in 53 chapters this ever happened. And while you may think that's not that much, let me just quickly mention that this is over, and yes I counted, 565 pages in. And sure, the comic even states itself on the page dedicated for new readers that you should just straight up skip 40 of the comic chapters. But the problem is that while it does try to catch people up to speed, it still doesn't do it even nearly enough. It still uses returning jokes you would have no chance of understanding if you hadn't read the 40 earlier chapters. You would have no idea someone was doing counseling. You would have no idea, no any build up to potential pairings or breakups, and even the closest thing to an active antagonist this comic has is introduced in the earliest strips. So no, you can't just skip that part and get the full experience. Especially not when the comic itself will refer to moments that happened before the cutoff point. And like I've stated over and over again, if the comic can't catch its readers in over 100 strips, let alone 400 of them, then fuck off if it becomes better. If you get kicked in the dick 400 times and it then offers you a piece of cake, you're still gonna call that a pretty bad 18th birthday.
Thanks for that, by the way, Uncle Paul, you fuck.
Yes, the comic actually does get somewhat competent after the 40 chapter mark. It becomes readable, and trust me when I say that that is an actual improvement. But what kind of reviewer wouldn't I be if I didn't at least give it a full review? But going out there as a webcomic creator and then shitting on other webcomics as the very first thing without even being prompted to, right. But yeah, near the 40 chapter mark, the comic becomes bearable and the plot knows what the fuck it's doing. Even the super goofy and shitty jokes become somewhat funny, and the melodrama gets turned down a notch or two.
But due to the characters, it doesn't really help much. And we'll be covering the characters real freaking soon.
Honestly, this comic is a fucking mess. It's borderline inept storytelling and it's horribly executed. It's all over the place, it's not funny when it wants to, and you don't care about the drama at all. Or at least, that's what I'd like to say. Truth of the matter is that after chapter 50, it actually starts becoming pretty freaking good. And I do mean that it becomes good by normal standards and not just when you compare it to the rest of the comic. 90% of this comic is trash at best, but then there's the last 10% that are nothing short of amazing. Scenarios and plot dilemmas are more often handled with great care and are well written, and you start to be able to understand characters and their motivations. The comic still continues to drop plot lines all over the place, has tone shifts so drastic and sudden it gives you whiplash, and still tries to be funny with horrible results. Don't get me wrong, but I would be lying if I said that some of these moments weren't truly nothing short of amazing.
Whether it's worth chugging through almost 100 chapters for that little amazing content, however, I will let you decide. I'm just sad that I have to sit and ponder that myself.
I want to finish off talking about the writing with a suggestion. Now, chances are that some of you people having made it this entire length into the video will already have branded me as a hater and a troll and all that good stuff that I consume with glee on a daily basis. But hear me out. Veronica and Oliver, if you truly want to do damage control, instead of going out of your way to start fighting with the people who don't like your comic, I'd instead suggest putting that energy into making a good catch-up chapter near the second arc or whatever you want to call it. Make sure you sum everything important up, and should you create new plot points with a basis in the earlier chapters, present it in a way so that you can catch people up to speed. A suggestion would be make a chapter where it's basically just, Daisy's diary, where she's summing up everything up to this point, or something along those lines. Cause guys, it does get good, and there is hope, and the entire idea of having a different starting point for new readers is a good idea that Philip Brown should probably use for Josh. And if you can truly persuade people to start from there and not the actual beginning, chances are you'll find way less people shitting on the comic. Cause it's because of everything prior to the second arc that I thoroughly dislike this comic's writing.
Just trust me when I say that going through the earlier chapters is like looking through a friend's browser history. It really changes your opinion of them, typically in the direction of
Okay, let's be real here. This art is not good. I won't make the leap and say it's terrible, but it's pretty bad. Even at the later pages, proportions and anatomy are just all over the place, but prior to the comic getting colors, it was downright impossible to keep track of who was who. The reason for this is because every character's body uses the exact same model, and your only way of differentiating the characters is by looking at their accessories. Mike wears a scarf, Lucy wears a bow, Daisy wears a pearl necklace, this other cat Sue that just got dropped for a good 40 chapters doesn't wear anything, and so on. Shit, even the weird pets, children, whatever the fuck they are, is kind of the same. If you strip them down to just the silhouettes, you got nothing. But then you add feathers to one and nothing to the other, and suddenly they're different characters.
Just because that's how it works in an MMO, where it's also ridiculed, doesn't mean that it works in a comic.
I really hope you like the imagery of a sad, cute cat, cause you're going to see it again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again. At some point it loses all meaning and impact, cause you just see it all the time. Like in How I Became Yours and Jack. We get it, you're miserable, welcome to being a teenager. Collect your free angst t-shirts, confused boner caps, and haywire hormone badges at the front desk. Don't forget to put a donation in the I wanna invent my own gender, cause that's what all the cool kids are doing jar on your way out. But seriously, I cannot stress clearly enough how tiresome this gets and how fast it becomes this tiresome. It goes from making me pity the character to just exclaim, "Oh my god, suck it up!" every time it appears. And boy does it appear often, cause apparently you can't showcase drama without someone crying. Like we've been over before, if everyone cries it loses the impact and it stops depicting a situation as sad, but rather starts representing the crying character as a whiny annoyance. And if you want to make people empathetic of that character, that's not how you do it.
That is how you make someone groan every time a particular character shows up.
Again, it's first over 50 chapters in that the comic starts actually using proper colors. It does play around with some colors here and there, like with drawing everything blue and then the moment something loving or sexual happens it gives off an aura of pink, which I found kinda nice. But all in all, due to the lack of colors and how similar the characters look, I could kiss any and all hopes I had of ever differentiating between the characters goodbye. It becomes downright silly when people are going, "Hey, green eyes," and there's 2 or more people the person could be talking to. And you're just sitting there going, which one? Cause you got no freaking clue who has green eyes and who doesn't. It's first at chapter 61 that the comic really finds its footing with the colors, using clear lines along with flat colors, and for all intents and purposes, this fits pretty good with the cutesy style. As opposed to House Pets, this here actually does do shading, albeit a little unorthodoxly at first, by simply doing a bunch of lines, but hey, if it works, it works.
Also, this is kind of a side thing, but I should mention that you guys have pointed out to me that Rick Griffin is actually really good at shading. It's just a shame that we don't see any of that in the comic, isn't it?
Fuck, I just read what's next on my list. Okay. My handwriting is atrocious. Every time I have to write anything for work or family or whatever, people tend to need to guess what I'm trying to write. As of such, I steer clear of any and all handwriting within realistic boundaries. I do this because I know fully well that not everyone can read my handwriting. This is also one of the many reasons why many reports you make in school today are typically made with a computer. Well, apparently Veronica didn't get the memo, as it is again first over 50 chapters in that she starts either using a computer to write the text, or she just gets much better at it. Prior to this, it becomes a guessing game of what many people are saying, cause the letters sometimes cramp together so much so that they create completely different words. This is a terrible thing as a reader to experience, cause it immediately takes you out of the comic and just stops the momentum you build up. Another thing is that Veronica plays very fast and loose with when to use voice bubbles and when not to. This too gets awfully confusing because sometimes when there's no clear indication where the text is supposed to come from, it's because it's an inner monologue by someone or something not important. But then sometimes it is important and sometimes it's not an inner monologue. And this again takes you out of the comic.
Basically, every time you leave your reader unintentionally guessing, you're doing it wrong.
The designs of the characters stays consistently meh throughout the entire comic. The only difference to them is, as I said before, their accessories. Meaning that if you try to do the silhouette test, where you only picture them as silhouettes, you got little to no chance of differentiating between them. It's not even like their body types are different, because everyone's freaking noodlemen with joints and shit just scattered out throughout their bodies at random. You got no one who's fatter than the other, no one who's slimmer, no one who has bigger breasts or muscles or anything. Like fuck me, wanna know the only way you can tell the difference between a Lucy without a bow and a Mike without a scarf? Lucy has these two small spikes near her cheeks and Mike doesn't. That's it. These are two completely unrelated characters, two completely different sexes, and that's the only way you can differentiate the two.
Okay, you guys. Like, you've been listening to me rant for long enough, so I got a little treat for you. Okay. You see this? Yeah, I'm about to show this chick super naked right here on YouTube. Don't tell anyone, okay? You ready? Boom!
Now, some of the more clever people in the audience might say, Riiser, you tricked me. How could you? You promised me naked girls and you showed me a not naked girl. And I know this is a breach of trust, and I'm sorry, but I kinda needed to do that to prove a point. Is everyone just naked? Like, sure, I get this is kind of a Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck thing, where I guess they're dressed despite not wearing any visible pants or shirt. But Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse doesn't several times show the characters covering their chest or groin because they're seemingly naked. And furthermore, sometimes they wear shirts, other times they don't. I know this is a minor point, but it just keeps annoying the shit out of me. Like, oh no, Mike, you can't see me naked. I'm just sat there going, wait, you were naked? And it gets extra weird when Veronica and Oliver starts going out of their way to, do the thing where you move an arm so it covers the naughty bits, or have the naughty bits just out of frame or whatever. But they're as dressed as they are when you normally see them in school, so what the fuck?
The last time I experienced that sort of confusion was with my ex. She didn't really know how to trim her legs. Or her chest for that matter. I still miss her mustache though.
Just like the writing, it kind of feels like Veronica and Oliver starts finding out what they're doing somewhere in early 2015, because after that a lot of the art actually starts showing the same trend as the writing did, which is improving dramatically. They often tell stuff through imagery rather than words, which I'm a sucker for. Heck, entire pages can have no words on them at all, yet tell you a lot. Veronica and Oliver starts becoming brave enough to shut the fuck up, which is a thing I've found that not many comic creators know how to do. Not every frame needs to have words on them. You don't have to have a frame with a dude in it with a voice bubble, only with an ellipsis in it to establish that the person isn't saying anything. But yeah, the art starts to more frequently have these really well executed scenes as time goes by. But unfortunately, the art in itself stays consistently mediocre.
I mean, when someone is making fun of someone else's weight, and you're just confused because the person has the exact same body size as everyone else, there's gonna be some issues present.
All in all, the art is just not that good, and it almost stays consistently bad throughout the comic. It starts out as subpar, then continues on to be tolerable, and then finally land on a spot that's kinda sorta mediocre. And again, you guessed it, it takes over 400 pages to get to that point. The designs are just poor, the proportions are as consistent as the Danish weather, and the backgrounds goes from being pretty good to straight up not exist. What I can say in the comic's art's favor though is that it does do some pretty good wacky facial expressions and exaggerated movements. And for a comic that doesn't seem to know how to do anything that isn't extreme, that's a good fit. Also, sometimes Veronica does seem to know what she's doing by taking some pretty big chances in terms of presentations. such as using old art styles or just silhouettes, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't love these scenes to death.
It's almost like when the comic calms the fuck down, it's not super terrible, right?
Can we just take a moment to talk about how big a cunt Lucy is? Like, I know there's not personally liking someone and then there's being a straight up bitch. She has this weird idea that she can just control everyone. She's constantly unfriendly and kind of mean, and I keep wondering where her purse is, in which she's keeping Mike's balls for the first 50 chapters. And the worst part is that at least for the first many pages, you can see this is not an intentional character trait. Because despite being a character worthy of a kick to the face, people still love her. In fact, that brings us nice and easy to the next thing, which is Lucy is a fucking Mary Sue and a goddamn half. With how many comics I've covered thus far, and with how many shitty ones I've covered thus far, there's remarkably few characters I've managed to qualify as a Mary Sue. Or a Gary Stu. The reason for this is simply that my criteria for such are rather high, cause I kinda feel it's such an easy insult to throw at someone. A character can be on the almost perfect side without necessarily being a Mary Sue. But when it's a pretty clear self-insert, when boys falls heads over heels at the mere tip of a hat for her, but she's way too cool to give them the time of day, the moment where she's brave enough to face off a bully, when she can be a downright asshole to people and they still shower her with affection, and when she comes out on top with almost everything she does, at the early chapters, all of this kind of adds up to being a Mary Sue.
It's like a math equation, you know, where 1 + 1 equals shitty character.
I swear, every time Lucy, the main fucking protagonist, showed up on screen, I sighed or groaned. I didn't want to read anything about her. She's so annoying, manipulative, and it's not interesting in the slightest to follow a character that's just gonna come out on top with everything she does because she's a Mary Sue. I've already done that more than any other person should be forced to do with Las Lindas, and I swear it's only cause I got this show that I forced myself to keep going. But I don't know, Riiser, she has such a beautiful singing voice. Which again screams Mary Sue to me, especially when she's approached for a record deal by a dude who just happened to be there scouting at a fucking school play, and then she says no to it. Of course, no, just because you got a character who's good at singing, it doesn't automatically default her into being a Mary Sue. But when you are just this terrible, horrible person who manipulates and punches people and is just all around not that fun to hang out with, yet demands people do it because she's afraid of being alone, when this person starts singing and everyone immediately almost cries over her beautiful singing voice, I'm the asshole in the corner who's laughing his ass off because it's so Mary Sue-esque.
It's the same when I see characters that are just super edgelords.
It should also be stated that Lucy is a true narcissist. Every issue, every action this lady instantly turns to be about her. Oh no, Mike, how'd you almost drown? How could you do that to me? Like, fuck off. Also, giant fucking spoilers here, when she finally confesses her love to someone and he doesn't return that affection for her, she's awfully quick to guilt trip the dude to the max, even to the point of getting their common friends to side with her to shit all over the dude just for not wanting to be with her. Cause oh wow, how deep a love these two had, right? You know, to the point where she straight up tries to bump uglies with someone else not even a week after she got turned down.
Lucy is, in every sense of the word, a huge bitch. She goes from being somewhat okay, although a little annoying, and then becomes this sickening, horrible bitch.
Here's Mike. Mike is a spineless asshole. He's also a little too perfect for my personal taste in a character in general, but I think I've used my Gary Stu quota for the next 10 reviews. So why is Mike a spineless asshole, you ask? I mean, after all, he does nothing but help everyone around him, and is always there for Lucy when she needs him, right? Well, the spineless part comes from the fact that while several people want his dick, one of which of course being Lucy and another being Daisy, he's at no point puts his foot down and tells that he's not interested in them. Instead, what he keeps doing is egging the girls on, leading them to think there's a potential chance, only to then say no, and once he does, holy shit, is he a fucking monster. Like we're talking about saying how the other person sickens him, screams at the top of his lungs that he hates them, tell them that no one could ever love them for who they truly are, and even explaining exactly why he has no interest in someone in the most brutal, over-elaborate, and exaggerated ways imaginable. I get that sometimes you have to put your foot down, especially when emotions are involved, but fucking come on! There's a difference between saying, okay, listen, I'm really happy you feel that about me, but I simply can't return your feelings, and I hope you can respect that too. I wouldn't piss on you if you were on fire, you skanky slutty hoe. The best use I can think of you is peeling off your skin and use it as a cum rag.
He starts out being this kind of a nice guy, but as the comic goes on, he just becomes this fucking terrible person cat thingy.
God damn it, Teddy, you have to calm down.
Meet Daisy. Daisy is an attention-seeking, manipulative bitch of a girl. At first she is spunky and happy and super clever, but that quickly turns into her being so desperate of becoming the center of everyone's attention that she's willing to put her own friends down for it to happen. A thing which I don't actually recall she ever apologized for, now that I think about it. She's so in love with being the center of attention that when she eventually goes on a date with Mike, she more seems to be loving the attention she's getting from dating him than being with him. Also, the moment Mike is out of the picture, which takes a grand total of one chapter, she immediately jumps along to mag on someone else. I will say, however, that as shitty as Daisy is, I think she's probably my favorite character. After all, in the Valley of the Blind, the one-eyed is the king, and Daisy just has this go-getter personality, which is a thing I kinda liked. But other than that, she's just a horrible person like the rest.
You heard that right. This theme continues with the rest of the characters. Buckle up.
Next up is Paulo, and this dude is a fucking asshole! He's definitely the person that shows the most caring and friendly side out of all the shitty characters, but that is immediately overshadowed by him being a freaking two-timing bastard. This one girl who he's super crazy about doesn't want him, fair enough, but we then find out he secretly had an eye towards Daisy throughout that entire ordeal. Okay, fair enough. Maybe he's finally realizing his true feelings for Daisy. Nope. He then goes and almost has sex with the first girl. Then, for some odd reason, he starts having this weird idea he needs to bag as many chicks as possible, and then proceeds to have sex with 2 other girls, plus setting up a date with a third. And then the comic tries to give us a sub-story about how he's always had a crush on Lucy. This motherfucker would stick his dick inside of a fucking toaster if it wore a bow and a lipstick. I mean, come on, that's like 1, 2, 3, 4. That's like 6 girls, dude. And if it's like, say, Barney from How I Met Your Mother, or shit, even Rain Summers from Least I Could Do, where the dude is just banging girls left and right, don't fucking try and tell me he secretly has feelings for 3 of them and try and convince me they're real.
Even more so, don't freaking try to make me feel sorry for this dude.
Paulo does, like I said, however, show some honest to God good moments, and the pregnancy scare I talked about earlier was with him as kind of the main character. And that chapter was done so well that it actually made me kind of respect Paulo, both with how he immediately showed responsibility for the whole pregnancy thing, and also with how he refused to have sex with Lucy when she was emotionally unstable. But then I remember how he's claiming to have always loved Lucy despite him banging 5 other women, and I was immediately back on hating this dude again.
Honestly, besides the infidelity shit that Paulo does, he honestly feels like a kind of perfect boyfriend fantasy. I really don't know if that's intentional or if I'm just an asshole, or a mixture of the two, but that's probably why he turns out to be the protagonist after a certain point.
Tess is a year older than the others. Or maybe she's like 3 years older. The comic kind of jumps all over the place with that one. She's also probably the character with the least problems of the main characters, except Sue once she's remembered again. You know, besides spreading rumors about someone being a gigantic whore only for the sake of proving a point. And you know the other characters are bad when this is one of the people that has the least problems with her. My most memorable moment with her, just from how furious it made me, was when she prior to prom has done little to nothing but tell Paulo she'll fuck the daylights out of him. Like, she does that over and over and over again, right? Then come prom and Paulo confesses his feelings for her, which, you know, she'd have to be actively blind to not have realized. And she's kind of disturbed and shocked that he'd feel that way at prom, and shuts him down because he's a year younger than her. And then, almost in the same fucking breath, she decides to kiss Paulo. Now there's a joke to be made about sending mixed signals, and then there's whatever the hell this cunt is up to. Like, what the actual serious fuck?
The worst part is that I'm 800% sure that you're actually supposed to root for these characters and have relatable points of views with them. So it's not like they are written to be terrible on purpose, they just ended up that way.
There's a few more characters, some of which I simply refuse to talk about cause I'd rather get stabbed than accept this abomination was ever a thing, although I suppose he becomes a little funny after the 50 chapter gap. But the last quote unquote characters I want to talk about are Lucy and Mike's pets. The fuck up with those. Like, can all animals just talk? Can a pet have pets? And why the fuck does no one seem to be bothered about these things just show up at school? Why is one seemingly unable to grow up and acts like a baby all the way through? Why is there no other than these? And my favorite question, what the fuck is she actually supposed to be? The comic kinda talks about it as being a lizard, but seriously? This is a lizard? It looks like a goddamn glob of snot with eyeballs and a mouth. Seriously, these animals just helped confusing me more than they made me like them or help with the plot. It was at the point where I was wondering whether or not people could actually hear or see them, cause it didn't look like any known animal, so for almost 100 pages, I thought they were just Lucy's imagination.
Seriously, when your characters are so shit that this is the most reasonable conclusion someone can make, you got a problem.
Also, I think, don't quote me on this, but I honestly think that no one of the characters we follow and I've talked about thus far wouldn't instantly dump this significant other if a certain other person showed interest. Mike starts doubting Sandy's the right one and would jump on Lucy if she showed up immediately. Paulo has several partners he'd dump for Lucy. Daisy would dump Abby if Mike showed interest, and the fucking Final Fantasy character Augustus seemingly forgets all about his old love that he apparently had for several years, as well as his affection for Daisy, the moment he starts getting along with Lucy.
You can't really fault me for not caring about the drama when no one really loves anyone. They just settle.
In short, the characters of this comic are abysmal. I refuse to believe they were meant to be horrible people when written, but through a sloppy execution, they just became worse and worse the longer the comic went on. Plus, in terms of how their characters are written, it's just a massive failure. They're so paper thin. Just because you got a background for your character doesn't make them fleshed out. The reason why one can be persuaded to say that a character is fleshed out the more backstory we hear about them is because the more we are exposed to that character, the more traits and personality quirks we see. That is what fleshes out the character, not that they've just had more screen time. I mean, think about it. What's there to say about the protagonist? She's moody, deaf on one ear sometimes. She needs someone to lean on constantly, and she's a narcissist. That's hardly a character, that's a stereotype. So is the happy bookworm, the cool rascal, the dumb klutz, and the tortured soul. And then there's this motherfucker from Final Fantasy.
The less said about him, the better.
The writing is a 5. The idea is there, the execution is not. I can see why people will like this, but to me it's just too much not me for me to give it the benefit of the doubt. While it does get better, I simply doubt whether or not the writing is worth it at this point. It does get better, yes, but there's still huge problems with the writing with stuff such as dropped plot lines and gigantic tone shifts. The art is a 4. It's cute, I guess, but there's way too many slip-ups, way too many errors, way too little to catch my eye, way too much fucked up anatomy, and way too little to differentiate the characters for me to not look at it and sigh. The characters are a 2. Holy shit, stop the boss, cause I want off. These are terrible people, depicted as terrible stereotypes, and you really have to look hard if you want to find anything redeeming in them. All in all, the final reading experience is a 4. You may comment your hate comments now if you haven't already. The best summary I can give of Bittersweet Candy Ball is horrible people pretending to be decent do melodrama badly. While it does get better after a good 400 pages, that's simply too late to save it, at least for me. It has nuggets of other brilliance within it, but I can honestly not suggest reading through the entire thing for those nuggets of gold. I simply doubt whether or not it's actually worth it.
If you like this comic, fine. I won't take that away from you, seriously. You are more than welcome to enjoy this comic and have this comic as your favorite webcomic ever if you want to. All the power to you. Lord knows I've seen that there's plenty of you guys out there. These are just my thoughts on the comic, and if they come across as harsh, it's simply me hoping that we get less of the stupid stuff that is borderline super terrible, and more of the stuff that actually could make this comic amazing. But you're probably already setting up a storm in the comment section, aren't you? Oh well. All the 3 kings have now been reviewed. The 3 comics you guys have since day one been suggesting to me over and over again. And what a doozy it was to finish it off with. Guess I'll give you the pussy back so you can complain to him about how I was too mean or some fucking dumb shit like that. Or rather, why should I point this gun towards myself? Well, this is much more fun.
Says all debaters 6 times a knocking on the door. No response, but hey, you're ready. Back to back, death comes arriving on a midnight train. Back to back, conscience is screaming to the end. Back to back, can't let anyone do it again. Back to back, I can no longer pretend. Break you down. Just wanna get back my dice again. Blazing down. What a heavy day.
It really sucks. I really wanted to like this comic, and now that I put my thoughts out there, I'm probably going to be headhunted by angry fans who want me dead. Trust me guys, I wanted this to be as good as you guys think it is. I simply couldn't do it. Today's episode is sponsored by a bunch of amazing people, and we are going to try and do it a little different this time. So let's see how that works out. If you like it, please let me know. If you don't like it, well, still, please let me know. First of all, we got Olivier Lardsky, who is advertising for one of his friends' comic known as Jan Dora, a very cool, very interesting sci-fi fantasy comic. Go check it out. Next up we have Achromatic, who is working on an adult version of Pac Man. A really interesting concept that I can't wait to see more of. Next up we got Ray. Ray is working on DNA, a very awesome comic that I may just be covering sometime later on the webcomic relief. She could do with a little support on Patreon, so please go and check that out. Agent Cheshire. Agent Cheshire has finally gotten around to updating Vanillif, and it looks really good. It first looked kind of interesting, now it just looks interesting and funny, so go check it out. Nights to Dreams. Nights to Dreams is working on Fractures, a fantasy comic about friendship and what people are willing to go through to, keep that friendship alive, and whether or not it will be worth it at the end. Scott Fraser. Scott Fraser is working on Star Warriors. Star Warriors is a very interesting comic about what happens when you wish upon a star and the people who are doing their hardest and laying down their life for your wish to come true. Nick Nocturne. Nick is working on the series known as Nightmare on YouTube, and if you don't know what that is, well, go check it out because it's probably the best horror stuff you'll find on all of YouTube. Shiv. Shiv is working on Keys to My Heart, which is a very touching, very heartwarming, and very lovely comic about romance. Jake. Jake is working on The Drifter, a very mature furry webcomic that I strongly suggest you check out if you're into a little more mature feeling than what this comic gave you. Angel Povadano-Ruiz. Angel is working on Destined Flames, which is a fantasy action comic. It has so much charm and so much heart put into it that I strongly suggest that you go check it out. Megan Smith. Megan is working on a comic known as World 8, where she's basically taking the concept of being destined for each other and putting it up to 11. It's very interesting, very thought-provoking, and it's also a good read. Hitori the Artist. Have you ever wanted to be in my shoes? Probably not, but if you ever wanted to give feedback on someone's art and watch it grow, this is your chance to do so. Hitori the Artist would greatly appreciate any and all feedback you can give him, and he's doing weekly streams on Picado every Sunday, so be sure to go check that out. Soul Blader. Soul Blader is working on Tears of the Fallen, which is a comic that is centered around action and fantasy. There's nothing that you can read of it yet, but from the designs I've seen, you're in for a good ride once it finally hits the internet. Nana Newcomb. Nana Newcomb is working on Blackbird, a action superhero comic with a little twist to the more mature. Read it if you want a different spin on the whole superhero genre. Alex J. Alex J is working on Death's My Bitch, which is a workplace drama comic about Grim Reapers and how it is being the Grim Reaper. Go check it out if you find stuff like that interesting. Cloudy Days. Cloudy Days is doing sprite animations, and you will be able to see those if you go to his DeviantArt profile. However, I fear that we will have to wait to see anything new, because he has been captured by Overwatch. Shane Asher. Shane Asher is working on Strays of Seraria, which is a different spin, a different take to the whole superhero thing, because this is more fantasy. Go check it out if you care about superheroes but want to see a little different spin on them. And last, but definitely not least, we have Arno Smet, Drika of Adrian, Insane Ukulele, Dark Speeds, Nicholas Knudsen, Jay Lee, Brittany Williamson, Alistair Vane, Kawai Lee, Ghostlight Studios, Lizzie Shiro, Gage, Zachary Seligson, Shannon TJ, and Vivid Publishing. If you want to support the show, you can do so by pledging on Patreon. You can pledge any amount you want and it will only ever draw from your account when I put up a video, so you don't pay for me just sitting around. The more you pay, the more I'll appreciate it, and in turn, the more cool little extra tidbits of the webcomic relief you'll get. Everything from talking with me to see outtakes and sooner or later I will get around to doing some commentary tracks so you can see what's going on behind the video. You can pledge any amount you want and you don't have to, the show will continue nevertheless. It's just greatly appreciated and I can use that money on better equipment such as a better microphone, a better camera, better lighting. You've already seen the improvements the Patreon has given me. If you don't feel like throwing any money at the webcomic relief, you can help in a different way, simply by subscribing to the channel, liking the video and perhaps sharing it with your friends. If you don't want to do that, well at least thank you for watching it till the end. Now if you'll excuse me, I'll go hit a bunker or something and, you know, just ride the storm out that I have just caused. So take care till next time, bye bye.